I abandoned my cheating wife after catching her with her lover. Lorenzo stood as a shining beacon of elegance in downtown Denver, its brick facade illuminated by tasteful copper sconces that cast a warm, inviting glow across the sidewalk. Ronan Hale adjusted his charcoal suit jacket as he stepped out of the Tesla he had bought last year, a symbol of his rise from the rough streets of his youth to becoming a successful structural engineer. The maitre d' recognized him immediately, having taken his reservation with specific instructions for their 8th anniversary celebration. "Mr. Hale, your table is ready. Right this way, sir." The restaurant hummed with the gentle musicality of fine dining. The soft clink of crystal wine glasses, murmured conversations, and the subtle scrape of silver against bone china. Their table, nestled in a quiet corner with a stunning view of the Denver skyline, was exactly what he had requested. A bottle of 2015 Special Selection Cabernet Sauvignon, Cassidy's favorite, was already breathing in a crystal decanter. Ronan pulled out Cassidy's chair, noting how she barely glanced up from her phone as she sat. Her cream-colored dress was brand new, and it was clear she had just as much style as she had money. He hadn't seen that dress before, and it probably cost more than their first month's rent in the starter home they'd shared 8 years ago. "This is lovely," Cassidy said finally, tucking her phone away in her designer clutch. Her smile, like the warm rays of the sun, seemed practiced, like one she'd give to her yoga students at the studio. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble. 8 years deserves something special," Ronan replied, his deep voice carrying the weight of memories. He remembered their wedding day, how she had looked at him then, like he was her entire world. That look was unmistakably genuine. The sommelier approached, presenting the wine with practiced flourish. Ronan went through the ritual of tasting and approving, his mind filled with excitement as he thought about the changes he'd noticed in recent months. Cassidy's new workout routine at that upscale gym, the sudden interest in designer clothes, the passwords changed on her devices. "Remember our first anniversary?" he asked, eager to see her reaction. "That little Italian place in Aurora. We could barely afford the pasta, but the memory remains cherished." Cassidy's laugh sounded a little forced, but Ronan didn't mind. "God, yes. You wore that eye-catching blue tie your mother gave you. You said it brought out my eyes." "Did I?" Her phone buzzed in her clutch, and her fingers twitched with anticipation. But her laugh still sounded a little forced, as if she was trying too hard to be cheerful. "The food here looks amazing. Have you tried the sea base?" Ronan noted the deflection, adding it to his mental list of red flags. Having grown up in Denver's toughest neighborhood, he had learned to read people like a book. He'd survived by being attuned to the nuances others overlooked. The waiter arrived with their appetizers, bruschetta for her, calamari for him. Cassidy's phone buzzed again, and this time she just had to check it. Her fingers darted to her clutch, pulling out the device like an addict reaching for a fix. "Work?" Ronan inquired, his tone neutral, though a tightening knot could be felt in his stomach. "Just some students with questions about tomorrow's advanced class," she replied, her thumbs moving rapidly across the screen. A slight smile played at her lips. Ronan remembered when those smiles were for him, when they'd stay up late talking about their dreams. His ambitious plans to start his own engineering firm, her desire to open a yoga studio. Somewhere along the way, those shared dreams had become separate lives. It was their 8th wedding anniversary, and Ronan had planned a special celebration. 8 years, he said, raising his wine glass. The crystal caught the candlelight, throwing prismatic shadows across the white tablecloth. "Here's to us," he said, his voice alive with anticipation. Cassidy lifted her glass, but her eyes didn't quite meet his. "To us." The hollow ring of their glasses meeting matched the emptiness of their toast, but they didn't care. Ronan eagerly cut into his perfectly cooked filet mignon, while Cassidy picked at her salmon. Then, her phone buzzed again. "I'll be right there," he said, putting his napkin back on his plate with a smile. He noticed how her shoulders relaxed slightly at his words, her hand already reaching for her phone. Instead of heading directly to the restroom, Ronan strategically positioned himself behind one of the restaurant's decorative pillars, its marble surface providing a pleasant coolness against his palm. From this vantage point, he could see Cassidy's face illuminated by the blue glow of her screen. Her forced smile and distant eyes were both gone. Now, she was fully engaged, completely present. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, and for a fleeting moment, Ronan saw the passion and life he knew so well in his wife. Then, her phone buzzed again, and he moved silently, years of street-smart instincts taking over. He approached from a blind spot, his reflection hidden by the restaurant's strategic lighting. The message preview flashed across her screen, clear as day. "Can't wait to put my dick inside you again." The sender's name read Blaine. Time seemed to crystallize, each second sharp and distinct like broken glass. The pieces clicked into place. Her sudden interest in that new gym, the late-night yoga preparation meetings, the password changes on her laptop. He'd been a fool not to see it sooner. With a surge of adrenaline, Ronan reached over and plucked the phone from her hands. Cassidy gasped, her face draining of color as she realized what had happened. Her wine glass tipped, spreading a crimson stain across the pristine tablecloth like blood seeping from a wound. "Ronan, I can explain," she said, her voice alive with possibility. He placed the phone on the table between them, screen up, the damning message still visible. "Care to explain this, Cass?" His voice was low, controlled, but carried an edge sharp enough to cut steel. The nickname he'd once used lovingly now tasted like poison on his tongue. Cassidy's fork clattered against her plate, the sound drawing curious glances from nearby diners. "It's not, it's not what you think." "Not what I think." Ronan's laugh, though not exactly a joyous celebration, possessed a ragged kind of charm that seemed to echo the gritty streets of his youth. "Because what I think is that my wife is someone else. What I think is that 8 years of marriage means so little to you that you'd throw it away for some gym owner's dick." "Please lower your voice," Cassidy pleaded, her eyes darting around the restaurant as other patrons began to stare. "We can talk about this at home. I can explain everything." "There's nothing to explain," Ronan said, pulling out his wallet and dropping several $100 bills on the table, letting them scatter across the wine stain. "Happy anniversary," he added, his voice filled with joy. He stood, straightening his suit jacket with deliberate calmness that belied the rage building inside him. He had learned, growing up, that true power lay not in explosive anger but in calculated action. He'd survived by thinking 3 steps ahead, and now those same skills would serve a different purpose. "Ronan, wait," Cassidy called out, her voice cracking with desperation. "Please, you don't understand." He didn't turn around. She sat there, surrounded by judging eyes and whispered conversations. Let her feel the full weight of her betrayal in public, just as she'd humbled him with her infidelity. Stepping into the refreshing Denver night air, he took a deep, steadying breath, his heart pounding with excitement. A young valet approached, his keys in hand, but Ronan graciously waved him off. He needed to walk, needed to feel the solid ground beneath his feet as his world tilted on its axis. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of building a life together. All of it built on a foundation of lies. As he walked through the vibrant downtown streets, past the bustling bars and restaurants filled with happy couples, Ronan felt a surge of determination. He'd learned long ago that trust, once broken, could never be truly repaired. Cassidy had made her choice, and now she would face the consequences. The game had changed, and Ronan Hale never played to lose. The suburban streets of Denver were silent as Ronan pulled into his driveway. The Tesla's electric engine hummed quietly, reflecting his own inner calm. The 2-story Craftsman home loomed before him, every window dark except for the porch light Cassidy always left on when he worked late. Tonight, that small gesture of consideration felt like another lie. He unlocked the front door and moved through the darkness with practiced ease, ignoring the family photos lining the hallway walls. 8 years of memories, each one now tainted by suspicion. How long had she been planning this? How many of those smiling moments had been staged? Ronan headed straight to his home office, the one room in the house that was exclusively his. This was the space where he designed award-winning buildings, where he built his reputation as one of Denver's most innovative structural engineers. Now, it would serve a different purpose. He locked the door behind him, his movements precise and purposeful. He found Cassidy's laptop sitting on the desk, just as she had left it that morning. She'd been using his office lately, and he had allowed it, never suspecting that she might be hiding something. The laptop hummed to life, its soft blue glow filling the darkness. Ronan's fingers danced over the keyboard, recalling the unique patterns of Cassidy's password, their anniversary date, her mother's maiden name, or he typed in Namaste Yoga 2016, the year she'd gotten her instructor certification. Instantly, the screen unlocked, and he was in. Some habits never change, even when everything else does. "Let's see what you've been hiding," Ronan said, her voice alive with anticipation. She opened her email client. He'd learned long ago that people revealed their true selves through their digital footprints. Back in his neighborhood, he'd watched countless criminals get caught because they couldn't resist bragging online. Cassidy wasn't a criminal, but she left her own trail of evidence. The first red flag appeared in her sent folder, dozens of emails to Blaine Coulter at EliteFitDenver.com. Ronan clicked on the oldest one, dated 3 months ago. *Blaine, thanks for the amazing session today. You really pushed me to my limits. I'm looking forward to our next private training session. While innocuous on the surface, Ronan's eye was caught by the timestamp, 11:47 p.m. What kind of legitimate training session ends that late? Eager to uncover more, he delved into her emails, eager to see what other gems he might find. The messages grew more explicit over time, evolving from thinly veiled flirtation to outright sexual content. There were photos, too, ones that made his stomach turn. His wife, the woman he'd built a life with, posing for another man. But it was the financial email that truly set his blood boiling. Hidden in a folder labeled Studio Expansion, he found their plans. Asterisk baby. I checked our joint account again. Ronan never even looks at the statements, too busy with his precious buildings. We could easily move $50,000 to help with the gym expansion. By the time he notices, we'll be long gone. Miss you already. Zoxo. Asterisk Ronan's jaw clenched as he read message after message. They'd been plotting to steal his money, to destroy everything he'd worked for. He'd grown up with nothing, fought his way through engineering school, built his career from the ground up, and his wife planned to rob him blind for some muscle-bound gym owner. He opened her photo gallery next. Hundreds of pictures filled the screen. There were pictures of Cassidy and a man he recognized from the gym's website, Blaine Coulter, the owner of Elite Fit Denver. In some photos, they were working out together, showing off their impressive physiques. In others, they were clearly more intimate. The timestamps showed a clear pattern, always during her supposed advanced yoga training sessions. Think you're clever? Ronan whispered, eagerly downloading and organizing the evidence. Growing up, I learned that revenge requires patience and planning, he said, grinning. You didn't just react. You gathered intel, built your case, and struck when they least expected it. Next, he found their text messages, backed up to her cloud storage. Thousands of messages, each one another nail in the coffin of his marriage. Asterisk miss your hands on me. I can't wait to leave this boring life behind. Ronan was so clueless, it was comical. The messages painted a clear picture. While he'd been designing buildings, attending client meetings, and believing in their marriage, Cassidy had been planning her escape with Blaine. They'd been laughing at him, mocking his trust, plotting to steal his money. A sound from downstairs broke his concentration. The front door opening, then closing softly. Cassidy was home. Ronan checked the time. 1:23 a.m. She'd stayed at the restaurant for nearly 2 hours after he'd left, probably calling Blaine, planning damage control. He heard her footsteps on the stairs, hesitant and uneven, like a cat on a hot tin roof. She was probably drunk, trying to drown her guilt in expensive wine. The footsteps paused outside his office door, and he could practically feel her uncertainty through the solid oak. Ronan? Her voice was small, tentative. Can we talk? He remained silent, continuing to document her betrayal. The doorknob rattled slightly, locked, keeping her out, just as she'd kept him out of the truth of their marriage. Please, she begged. What you saw, it's not everything. I can explain. Ronan's fingers moved with purpose, rapidly taking screenshots, saving emails, and meticulously documenting every betrayal. He'd learned long ago that begging was just manipulation in disguise. The gangs in his old neighborhood used to beg, too, for mercy, for understanding, for one last chance. But mercy only invited more betrayal. "I love you," Cassidy said through the door, her voice cracking with emotion. "What we have, it means everything to me." The lies might have worked once, back when he believed in second chances. But the evidence on the screen told a different story. In one email to Blaine, dated just last week, she'd written, "Asterisk, I've never felt this way before. What I have with Ronan is nothing compared to us. You make me feel alive." He found their joint account statements next, tucked away in a folder labeled Budget Planning. The transactions painted a clear picture. Large withdrawals disguised as yoga retreat payments, studio equipment purchases that never existed. They had already stolen nearly $20,000. "Ronan, please, just talk to me." Her voice had grown desperate, but he continued his work. Every document he found was another piece of ammunition, another nail in the coffin of their marriage. He'd survived his tough childhood by learning to see people for who they really were, not who they pretended to be. And now, he saw Cassidy clearly for the first time. The sound of her sliding down the door reached his ears, followed by quiet sobs. Let her cry. Let her feel a fraction of the pain she'd planned to inflict on him. He'd shed his own tears later, in private, when the work was done. Hour after hour, Ronan built his case. He tracked their meetings through gym check-in records she'd forwarded to her email. He found hotel reservations, restaurant receipts, planned rendezvous disguised as yoga workshops. Every detail was cataloged, every lie exposed. As dawn painted the Denver sky in shades of gold and amber, Ronan finally sat back in his chair. Before him, the screen revealed the complete anatomy of his wife's betrayal. Dates, times, locations, messages, photos, and financial records. With this information, Ronan had everything he needed to destroy not just their marriage, but also the comfortable life she'd planned with her lover. The office door was silent now. Cassidy had retired sometime around 3 a.m., heading to their bedroom. She would wake soon, probably hoping the previous night had been a bad dream. But Ronan had spent the night turning that dream into a nightmare, one from which he'd never wake up. He stretched his muscles, which were stiff from hours of focused work. The familiar ache reminded him of late nights studying engineering, of the dedication it took to escape his past. He'd built himself up from nothing once before. He could do it again. But first, he had scores to settle. Glancing at the neatly organized evidence on his screen, Ronan's face broke into a determined smile. In his old neighborhood, they had a saying, "Revenge is a dish best served with receipts." And he had every receipt he needed to serve Cassidy and her lover the meal they deserved. The morning after the anniversary dinner, the sky was cold and gray, mirroring Ronan's mood as he prepared for work. He moved through their morning routine like a ghost, ignoring Cassidy's red-rimmed eyes and trembling hands as she tried to make coffee in the kitchen. "I made your favorite breakfast," she said, her voice hoarse from crying. "The eggs are just how you like them." Ronan poured his coffee into a travel mug, not sparing a glance at the perfectly plated breakfast. "Not hungry," he said, his tone light and carefree. His words cut through the kitchen's tension like a blade, and Cassidy felt the air shift. Let's talk about this. Cassidy took a step closer, her eyes bright with anticipation. What you saw, it's not. Touch me, Ronan interrupted, his voice calm and measured, and you'll regret it. Ronan wasn't a physical threat, but his words carried weight, causing Cassidy to stumble back as if he had hit her. She watched, entranced, as he strode out the door without another word. At Morrison Engineering, Ronan immersed himself in his work, using his lunch breaks to plan his next moves. His office, with its wall of windows overlooking downtown Denver, had always been his sanctuary. Now, it was his war room. Everything okay, Ronan? Marcus, his project manager, asked after a particularly tense client meeting. You seem different. Never better, Ronan replied, his eyes never leaving the blueprints spread across his desk. He'd learned long ago that showing weakness only invited predators. Keep your pain private, your plans secret, and your enemies guessing. Each evening, he returned home late, long after Cassidy's yoga classes would have ended. He'd found her schedule online, her actual classes, not the fake ones she'd used as cover for meeting Blaine. The studio closed at 7 o'clock, so he made sure to arrive no earlier than 9 o'clock. The first night, she'd waited up for him, sitting in the dark living room like a ghost. I canceled my evening classes, she said, a playful gleam in her eye, as he hung up his coat. I thought we could talk. Nothing to talk about, Ronan said, heading straight for his office. The lock clicked behind him with finality. The second night, she tried a different approach, wearing the red dress he loved, her hair styled the way he'd always preferred. I made reservations at that new Italian place you mentioned, she called through his office door. The one by the river. Ronan didn't respond, his fingers flying across his keyboard as he documented more evidence of their financial schemes. He discovered they'd been planning to gradually drain the accounts, making it look like business expenses for her yoga studio. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was a calculated, premeditated theft. By the third night, Cassidy's desperation had begun to show. She paced the hallway outside his office, her phone clutched in her hand. You can't just shut me out forever, she said, her voice cracking with emotion. We're married. We need to deal with this. Ronan continued his work, ignoring her words just as she'd ignored their vows. On his screen, another email from Blaine appeared in her inbox. Asterisk baby, don't worry. He'll cool down eventually. Guys like him always do. They're just too afraid of losing what they have. Give it time. I love you. Ronan felt a surge of adrenaline as he added that email to his growing file of evidence. Blaine had never known real men. Men who'd grown up fighting for every scrap of respect. Men who understood that sometimes you had to burn everything down to build something stronger. The fourth day brought a shift in Cassidy's behavior. She headed to the gym early, her yoga bag packed with more clothes than usual. Ronan knew she was meeting Blaine. His surveillance software had captured their text messages planning the rendezvous. Asterisk need to see you. Everything's falling apart. Asterisk Blaine's response had been his usual blend of confidence and swagger. Asterisk come to the gym. I'll make you forget all about him. Let them meet, Ronan thought. Let them plot, plan, and think they had the upper hand. Every secret meeting was just more evidence for his case, more ammunition for the war to come. At work, Ronan maintained his professional facade, but his colleagues had begun to notice the change in him. His designs, always precise, had taken on an almost brutal efficiency. His client presentations, normally engaging, had become coldly perfect. "You're different lately," Lisa from accounting mentioned during a budget meeting. "More intense." Ronan nodded, his mind already filled with fresh ideas for the next step. He'd learned that revenge, like architecture, required proper planning. Every detail, every support, every angle had to be perfect, or the whole structure would collapse. By the fifth day, Cassidy had begun to crack under the pressure of his silence. He found her in the kitchen at midnight, a half-empty wine bottle beside her. "Remember when we first met?" she asked, her voice a soft blend of excitement and anticipation. "At that coffee shop in Boulder? You were so different from anyone I'd ever known." Ronan strolled past her to the refrigerator, pulling out a bottle of water. He remembered that day, how genuine she'd seemed, how her smile had lit up the room. Now, he wondered if it had all been an act, if she'd been practicing deception from the very beginning. "You were reading that book about urban architecture," she continued, eager to break the silence. "I thought you were so sophisticated, so driven, not like the trust fund boys I usually dated." Her words were meant to remind him of their connection, but they only served to highlight the betrayal. He'd shared his dreams with her, his plans to revolutionize Denver's skyline, and she'd been planning to steal his money, to run away with a man who'd never built anything more complex than a bicep. The sixth day brought rain, heavy drops hammering against the windows of their home, like nature itself was trying to wash away their lies. Cassidy spent the morning crying in their bedroom. He could hear her through the walls of his office. Her phone buzzed repeatedly throughout the day. Blaine, growing increasingly concerned about their plans falling apart, wanted to make sure they were on track. Asterisk baby, we need to move fast. Access the accounts before he does. Don't let him ruin everything we've planned. Ronan added each message to his evidence file, his anger crystallizing into something cold and sharp. They thought he was weak, that he'd crumble like the spoiled rich men Cassidy was used to. They had no idea what he was capable of. On the seventh day, exactly 1 week after the anniversary dinner, Ronan decided it was time. He'd gathered more evidence than he could have ever imagined, enough to not only bring them down financially and legally, but socially as well. Every email, every photo, every stolen dollar, documented and ready for the court of law. He found Cassidy in the living room, gazing out at the Denver skyline he'd helped shape. She turned when he entered, her face bright with hope at this break in his silence. "Ronan, please," he held up his hand, cutting off her words. "Please sit down." His voice was calm, controlled, carrying the weight of 7 days of calculated planning. "We need to talk." Cassidy sank onto the couch, her face pale with anticipation. She didn't know it yet, but her comfortable world was about to shatter, just as she'd shattered his trust, his love, his belief in their shared future. Ronan moved to the television, connecting his laptop to the screen. It was time to show her exactly what he discovered, to make her understand the consequences of betraying a man who'd fought his way up from nothing. The game was ending, and Ronan Hale was about to declare checkmate. With a surge of adrenaline, Ronan stepped before the living room television, his laptop connected and ready. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Denver's glittering skyline appeared, a testament to his designs. Buildings built on precision and trust. Unlike his marriage, though, Cassidy perched on the edge of the couch, her fingers twisting the hem of her designer yoga top. "You've barely spoken to me for a week," she said, her voice small. "What's there left to say?" "Plenty," Ronan said, his finger hovering over the laptop's keyboard. "Like how long you've been planning to steal from our accounts." Her head snapped up, eyes widening. "What are you talking about?" "Let me show you." He pressed a key, and their joint account statements filled the screen. "See these transactions? Yoga equipment, studio rentals, workshop fees. Except none of it's real, is it, Cass?" "Those are business expenses," she protested, her voice wavering slightly. "For the studio expansion? You mean Blaine's gym expansion?" Another keystroke brought up their emails, the ones where she and Blaine planned to fund his gym with Ronan's money before running off together. Cassidy's face drained of color as she read her own words on the screen. "He'll never notice the money's gone until it's too late." "Ronan, I can explain." "Can you explain these?" He pulled up the photos next, dozens of intimate shots she'd sent to Blaine. "Or maybe you'd like to explain the hotel receipts, the late-night training sessions?" Cassidy jumped to her feet, reaching for him. "Please, you don't understand. I was confused, lost. Don't touch me." Ronan's voice cut through her excuses like a blade. "The only thing I don't understand is how I missed what a lying snake you are. That's not fair." Her cheeks flushed with color. "You were never home, always working, always at meetings. Blaine actually saw me, appreciated me, appreciated you." Ronan's laugh reverberated with excitement. "Is that what you call this?" He pulled up Blaine's messages. "Asterisk, once we get the money, we can dump this boring old life and start fresh." She's so desperate for excitement. It's almost too easy. "He didn't mean that." Cassidy's voice cracked. "He loves me." "Love?" Ronan advanced on her, his presence filling the room. "Let me tell you about love, Cassidy. Love is working 60-hour weeks to give your wife everything she wants. Love is supporting your partner's dreams, not stealing from them. Love is loyalty." "I made a mistake," she confessed, tears streaming down her face. "We can work through this. We'll go to counseling, rebuild trust. There's nothing to fix." Ronan turned back to his laptop, pulling up divorce papers. "I've already contacted my lawyer. You have 1 hour to pack your essentials and get out." "You can't do this." Cassidy's voice rose with excitement. "This is my house, too." "Actually, it is." He displayed another document. "The house is in my name only. Remember when you insisted we keep it that way for tax purposes? Isn't it amusing how your plans turned out? Where am I supposed to go?" "Ronan, I'm sure Blaine has room at his place. Though he might not be as excited to have you now that you can't steal my money for his gym." "You're being cruel," Cassidy whispered playfully. "Cruel?" Ronan's voice dropped dangerously low. Plotting to steal from someone who gave you everything? It's cruel to laugh about it with your lover while I sleep in your bed. What I'm doing is showing you mercy. I could have you arrested for financial fraud. Cassidy sank back onto the couch, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I never meant to hurt you. You're so full of it. Ronan checked his watch. You've got 53 minutes left. I suggest you start packing. Can't we just talk about this? She tried one last time. 8 years of marriage has to mean something. It meant everything to me. Ronan's eyes were hard as steel, until I saw what it meant to you. A convenient cover while you planned your exit strategy. That's not true. I loved you. I still. If you say you love me, Ronan cut her off, I'll play the recording of you telling Blaine how boring I am in bed. Would you like to hear it? Your exact words were, quite creative. Cassidy's mouth snapped shut, her face burning with shame. That's what I thought. He gestured toward the stairs. 48 minutes. She took a step forward, her legs wobbly, and she was on her way up the stairs. At the bottom step, she turned back. What about my other things? I'll have them delivered to your yoga studio, he said, his voice professionally detached. After my lawyer reviews which items are legally yours. My car isn't in your name. Ronan's smile didn't reach his eyes. You can call an Uber. Cassidy hurried upstairs, her sobs echoing through the house. Ronan listened to her frantic movements, drawers yanking open, hangers scraping, zippers racing. The sounds of a life being packed away in minutes. He moved to the kitchen, excited to pour himself 2 fingers of bourbon. The amber liquid caught the light like the wedding ring he'd already removed. 8 years, reduced to an hour of packing and a lifetime of regret. For her, at least. 45 minutes later, Cassidy triumphantly dragged 2 suitcases down the stairs. Her makeup was smudged, her designer clothes wrinkled, but she was ready for her adventure. Gone was the confident yoga instructor who'd thought she could play him for a fool. My mother's jewelry was a gift from my mother, Ronan said, taking another sip of bourbon. It stays. You've thought of everything, haven't you? Bitterness crept into her voice. Unlike you and Blaine, I don't leave things to chance. He sat down, his glass empty. Your Uber's here. Cassidy looked up, surprised. She hadn't called one. I took the liberty, Ronan explained. I just wanted to make sure you made it on time. She grabbed her suitcase, her heart pounding with excitement. At the door, she paused, ready to take the next step. Is there anything I can say to make this right? You said it all, and your messages to Blaine. Ronan opened the door. Best of luck in your new life. You'll need it. The Uber driver loaded her bags as Cassidy stood on the driveway, feeling a sense of freedom and possibility. Her perfect posture and yoga-toned confidence had been replaced by a newfound spontaneity. She stood there, a tiny speck against the vast night sky, like a fallen star igniting its own brilliance. Ronan, please, he shut the door, cutting off her final plea. Through the window, he watched the Uber pull away, taking with it 8 years of lies and betrayal. But this was just the beginning. Blaine's punishment was next, and Ronan had saved his best moves for the man who thought he could steal another man's life. The night was still young, and the stage was set for a thrilling game of vengeance. Elite Fit Denver occupied a renovated warehouse in the trendy Rhino district, its massive windows now dark against the night sky. The parking lot was empty except for a gleaming black Dodge Challenger, Blaine's pride and joy, bought with membership fees and stolen dreams. Ronan parked his Tesla on the street, keeping his car discreetly out of sight. He'd spent days observing this place, learning Blaine's routine. The gym owner always stayed late on Thursdays, counting the week's cash and taking alone time. Tonight, that privacy would cost him. The clock on his dashboard read 11:47 p.m., right on schedule. The gym's front lights clicked off, and Ronan felt a surge of excitement. Ronan stepped out of his car, his footsteps silent on the damp pavement. The night air carried the scent of approaching rain, washing away the neighborhood's usual food truck aromas. Blaine emerged from the side door, gym bag slung over his shoulder. His keys jingled as he locked up, his muscles flexing beneath his tight trainer shirt. He was humming, probably thinking about his next session with someone else's wife. Blaine Coulter, Ronan's voice cut through the night air. Blaine turned, his trademark smile already in place. "Sorry, man, we're closed, but we open at—" The smile faltered as he took in Ronan's expression. "Who's asking?" "You know exactly who I am," Ronan replied, stepping into the inviting glow of the security light. "Or should I show you the pictures you've been exchanging with my wife?" Recognition flickered across Blaine's face, followed quickly by his practiced charm. "Look, buddy, whatever Cassidy told you." "Cassidy didn't tell me anything." Ronan moved closer, his presence filling the space between them. "Your messages did all the talking. The plans for my money, the jokes about how stupid I was, the hotel meetups. That's just locker room talk, man." Blaine raised his hands, still trying to deflect. "Cassidy and we're just friends. She needed someone to talk to." The first punch caught Blaine completely off guard, snapping his head back. He stumbled, his gym bag dropping to the wet pavement. "Friends?" Ronan's voice remained eerily calm. "Is that what you call someone you're planning to steal from?" Blaine touched his bleeding lip, but his bravado turned to anger. "You don't know what you're talking about. Cassidy came to me. She was unhappy, lonely. So you decided to help by fucking her and stealing my money?" Another punch, this time to the ribs. Blaine doubled over, gasping. "She wanted it." Blaine tried to straighten up, raising his fists. "Said you were too busy with your precious career to notice her, too boring to satisfy her." Ronan caught Blaine's wild swing with ease, using the momentum to slam him against the gym's brick wall. "The only boring thing about me," he growled, "is how predictably I destroy people who cross me. You think this changes anything?" Blaine spat blood onto the pavement. "Cassidy's still leaving you. We had it all planned." "You mean this plan?" Ronan pulled out his phone, displaying their email exchanges. "The one where you convince her to drain our accounts for your gym expansion? That worked out really well, didn't it?" Fear flickered in Blaine's eyes. "Those emails are private." "Nothing's private anymore, Blaine." Ronan's grip tightened on the trainer's throat. "Not your messages, not your financial records, not even your creative accounting at the gym." "What are you talking about?" The IRS is very interested in businesses that don't report cash payments, Ronan explained, his smile bright and cold. Almost as interested as they are in personal trainers who help plan financial fraud. You can't prove anything, but I already have. Another punch landed, precise and brutal. Every message, every photo, every deleted email planning to steal my money. It's amazing what people keep in their trash folders. Blaine leaned against the wall, a trail of blood following from his nose. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Cassidy said you'd never fight for her. This isn't about fighting for her, Ronan said, delivering another blow. This is about consequences. You thought you could take what's mine? Let me show you how wrong you were. Please, Blaine gasped, raising his hands. I'll stay away from her, from both of you. You remind me of all the other cowards I grew up with. Ronan crouched beside him, making promises when their teeth are on the pavement. But you know what? I believe you. Why? Blaine nodded frantically. I'll be waiting, and if I see you near Cassidy again, near my house or even in my part of Denver, what happens tonight will be nothing compared to what's coming. Ronan's voice dropped to a whisper. I can't wait. Understand? Yes. Blaine's voice was weak, but his eyes were alive with excitement. Good. Ronan stood, straightening his jacket. Oh, and Blaine, you should start looking for a new location for your gym. This neighborhood's about to get too expensive for your kind of business. What does that mean? Fear made Blaine's voice crack. It means I just bought your building, Ronan said, a glint of excitement in his eyes. It's incredible how quickly property owners sell when they learn about potential health code violations. Your lease renewal next month? Consider it denied. You can't do this. Blaine tried to stand but slipped in his own blood. This gym is all I have. You should have thought about that before trying to steal from me. Ronan turned to leave, then paused. Hey, one more thing. Those membership fees you've been pocketing? The IRS audit starts Monday, and I'm looking forward to working out the details with you. Better hire a good accountant. I'll spread the word about your little plan, Blaine, he called after him. About tonight. Ronan turned back, his laugh devoid of humor. Tell them what? How you got beat up by the husband of the woman you were planning to steal from. Go for it. I'm sure your clients will love that story. He strode away, leaving Blaine reeling and bleeding on the pavement. The first drops of rain began to fall, washing away the blood but not the lesson. Nobody stole from Ronan Hale without paying the price. His phone buzzed, a text from Cassidy. Asterisk, I'm staying at my sister's. Can we please talk? Asterisk, Ronan deleted the message without responding. He wanted her to wonder where he was and what he was doing. Let her imagine the fate awaiting her lover. Fear was a powerful teacher, and class was still in session. The night air felt invigorating as he drove home, as if the rain was washing away not just blood, but also the day's stresses. But his work wasn't finished. Destroying Blaine was just the beginning. Now, it was time to dismantle every piece of the life Cassidy had taken for granted. Tomorrow, the real fun would begin. The morning sun cast harsh shadows across Elite Fit Denver's entrance as Cassidy hurried through the parking lot, her heart filled with excitement for the challenges ahead. Her designer yoga bag bounced against her hip, the same bag Ronan had given her last Christmas. She had received 3 unanswered calls from Blaine, each one spurring her onward and deeper into her journey. The gym's front door was locked, unusual for this time of morning, but that just added to the excitement. Through the windows, she could see the empty reception desk, normally buzzing with early clients. Something was wrong, but she was excited to figure out what. Blaine. She knocked on the glass, eager to find out what was going on. Blaine, she called out, her voice full of anticipation. Are you there? A shadow moved inside, followed by uneven footsteps. The door opened to reveal Blaine's weathered face. One eye swollen shut, dried blood crusting his split lip. "Oh my God!" she exclaimed. Cassidy reached for him, but he jerked away. "What happened to you? What happened?" Blaine's laugh, though tinged with pain, was full of life. "Your husband happened. The one you said was too busy with his career to notice anything. Ronan did this?" Her hand flew to her mouth. "But he's not. He never what?" Blaine spat, limping back into the gym. "Never fights? Never gets his hands dirty? Guess you didn't know him as well as you thought." Cassidy followed him inside, her designer shoes clicking on the polished concrete floor. The morning class regulars were MIA, their usual spots empty under the harsh fluorescent lights. "We should call the police," she said, reaching for her phone. "And tell them what?" Blaine dropped onto a weight bench, wincing. "That your husband caught us stealing his money? That we were planning to run away together? Great plan." "We weren't stealing. Don't," Blaine's voice cracked like a whip, "don't try that innocent act with me. Not now. Your husband showed me the emails, Cassidy. Every single one." Her face drained of color. He knows everything?" "Everything," Blaine said, his voice alive with excitement. "The money, the hotel meetings, our plans for the gym expansion. He even bought my building, just to shut me down." "He what?" "Oh, it gets even better." Blaine's laugh was hollow. "The IRS is auditing my books on Monday. Apparently, someone tipped them off about unreported cash payments." "You can't." But even as she said it, Cassidy knew better. This was the side of Ronan she'd never understood, the street-smart survivor beneath the polished engineer. "He already has." Blaine stood, grimacing. "And you know what the best part is? He was right. About everything. About us. About the money. How pathetic this whole thing was." "What are you saying?" Cassidy stepped closer, reaching for him. "We can figure this out together. Once things calm down. Together?" Blaine pushed her hand away. "There is no together, Cassidy. Your husband made that very clear last night, right before he rearranged my face. Our plans are done." Blaine moved to the front desk, pulling out a gym bag. "The gym's finished. My reputation's shot. Half my clients already canceled their memberships after getting an anonymous email about our affair. We can start over somewhere else," Cassidy pleaded. "Use my savings." "What savings?" Blaine's eyes were cold. "The ones in your joint account? The ones Ronan's already frozen? Come on, Cassidy. Let's face it, we won. Game over." "You're just giving up?" Tears streaked her makeup. After everything we planned? Planning is easy, Blaine said, zipping up his bag. Reality is a lot harder. Your husband made sure of that. You should have warned me what he was capable of. I didn't know. That's your problem, isn't it? Blaine shouldered his bag, heading for the door. You never really knew either of them, your husband or your lover. You just played with both until it blew up in your face. Where are you going? Away from you. Away from this whole mess. He paused at the door. Do yourself a favor. Stay away from the gym. Your husband made it clear what would happen if he saw us together again. You can't just leave me. Cassidy grabbed his arm. I gave up everything for you. No way, Blaine shook her off. You gave up everything for a fantasy, and now we're both paying for it. Goodbye, Cassidy. The door closed behind him with a final click, leaving Cassidy alone in the empty gym. Her reflection stared back from the wall-length mirrors, showing off her designer clothes, perfect hair, and hollow eyes. Everything she'd built her life around was crumbling. Her phone buzzed with another email from Ronan's lawyer. More documents to sign, more assets frozen, more proof of her infidelity and financial schemes. She thought she was so clever, planning her escape from suburban boredom. Now, she was the one trapped. Desperation fueled her journey across town to Ronan's office building. The security guard's eyes followed her as she rushed through the lobby, her Louboutin heels clicking on marble floors that suddenly felt too opulent, too much like the life she'd thrown away. The elevator ride to the engineering firm's floor gave her time to rehearse her speech. She would apologize, beg for another chance, and promise to make things right. But when the doors opened, Ronan was already waiting. You can't be here, he said, his voice carrying down the hallway and drawing curious glances from his colleagues. Please, just listen, Cassidy said, her voice alive with anticipation. She moved toward him, her hands raised in a gesture of supplication. What you did to Blaine, it was merciful compared to what he deserved. Ronan's eyes flashed with determination. And just like letting you walk away was merciful compared to pressing charges for attempted theft. I made a mistake, she said, her voice cracking with desperation. We can fix this. Go to counseling. Rebuild trust. Trust? Ronan's laugh drew more stares. You want to talk about trust? After I found pictures of you with another man in our bed? After you planned to steal my money? It wasn't like that. But even to her own ears, the defense sounded weak. Then tell me what it was like, Ronan said, his presence overwhelming. Tell me how you justified every lie, every betrayal. Explain how you planned to destroy everything we built together. I was unhappy, she said, her voice quivering with emotion. Unhappy? His voice dropped dangerously low. I gave you everything, the house, the cars, the lifestyle you wanted. But it wasn't enough, was it? You needed excitement. You needed to feel special. Ronan, please. You're not special, Cassidy. He turned away, dismissing her. You're just another bored housewife who thought she could play games with people's lives. Now you can be unhappy in the life you chose. What am I supposed to do? Tears streamed down her face, ruining her careful makeup. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore, Ronan pressed the elevator button. "But here's some free advice. Get a good lawyer. You'll need one." The elevator doors opened, and a group of executives stepped out, forcing Cassidy to back away. They nodded respectfully to Ronan, ignoring her obvious distress. "Don't contact me again," Ronan said as she stepped into the elevator. "Next time, I'll have security escort you out." The doors closed on her tears, on her pleas, on the life she destroyed, but she kept her chin up. In the mirrored walls of the elevator, Cassidy watched her reflection. The woman who thought she could have it all, now left with nothing. Outside, the Denver sun felt too bright, too harsh. Her phone buzzed again. Another email from her yoga studio. They were reviewing her position after multiple client complaints. Even her career, built on projected peace and wellness, was dissolving. Everything she'd taken for granted, the house, the cars, the comfortable lifestyle, had been stripped away in days. Blaine was gone. Her lover had shown her true colors, and she was ready to move on. Ronan, the man she dismissed as predictable, had proven to be anything but. The game was over, and Cassidy had lost every piece she tried to play. The law office of Kingston and Associates occupied the 32nd floor of Denver's newest glass tower. Ronan sat across from Michael Kingston, watching as the veteran divorce attorney reviewed the final paperwork. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, storm clouds gathered over the mountains, matching his mood. "You've built quite a case," Kingston said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "Financial fraud, documented infidelity, attempted theft. She doesn't have a leg to stand on." "I want everything," Ronan's voice was firm. The prenup specified infidelity as grounds for total forfeiture. "She's contesting it." Kingston pulled out another document. "She's claiming emotional abandonment. She says you were never home. Let her see the hotel receipts," Ronan suggested, leaning forward with anticipation. "The ones where she used our joint account to pay for rooms with Blaine. Let's see her explain that to a judge." Kingston nodded, adding the receipts to his file. "Her lawyer's requesting a settlement meeting. She's willing to be reasonable." "I'm not." Ronan's eyes hardened. She wanted excitement. Let's give her the excitement of watching everything disappear. "Mr. Hale," Kingston set down his pen. "In my 30 years of practice, I've never seen someone so thoroughly document their spouse's betrayal. The photos, the emails, the financial records. How'd you get all this?" "Growing up where I did," Ronan replied, standing and moving to the window. "You learn to watch for snakes before they strike, and you learn to strike back harder when they do." A knock at the door interrupted them. Kingston's assistant entered with a fresh stack of papers. "Here are the bank statements you requested, sir," she said, placing them on the desk. "And there's an update on the gym situation." Ronan turned eagerly. "Tell me." "The IRS audit revealed significant tax evasion," she announced, consulting her tablet. "They're freezing Mr. Coulter's assets while they investigate." "Perfect." Ronan allowed himself a small smile. "What about the building?" "Lease terminated as of next week. The new development plans have already been approved by the city council." Kingston whistled low. "You're a lifesaver, Mr. Hale." "That's what Cassidy never understood." Ronan returned to his seat, his tone full of optimism. I built myself up from nothing. Did she really think I wouldn't know how to tear someone down? Speaking of your wife, Kingston pulled out another document. She's been trying to access your joint investment accounts. Already frozen, Ronan's smile was cold. Along with her credit cards, gym membership, and country club access. It's incredible how the upper crust can turn on you in a flash when the money stops rolling in. She's claiming half the house, which is in my name only, Ronan interjected. Her idea, remember? She said it would help with taxes when she opened her yoga studio. Very convenient. Kingston made another note. The court date is set for next month, but with this evidence, we could push for an earlier hearing. No, Ronan's voice was calculated. Let her stew for a while. Let her feel what it's like to live without the lifestyle she took for granted. His phone buzzed with another message from Cassidy. Asterisk, we've got to talk. My lawyer says I could lose everything. That's the first honest thing she's said in months, Ronan muttered, deleting the message. Kingston cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Her lawyer mentioned something about personal items still at the house. They're already boxed and ready for delivery. Ronan's tone was businesslike. After we verified none of it was purchased with my money. If she disputes the ownership, she can explain to the judge how she afforded designer clothes on a yoga teacher's salary. Ronan stood. Are we done here? Kingston eagerly gathered the papers. Just need your signature on these final forms, then we can file for an expedited hearing. Ronan signed with swift, decisive strokes. Each signature was another nail in the coffin of his marriage, another step toward erasing Cassidy from his life. Just one more thing, Kingston said as Ronan reached the door. She's requested temporary support during the proceedings. She says she has no income since the yoga studio. Let her go. Ronan's voice was cold. The studio where she was meeting Blaine after hours? The one that fired her when their affair became public? That's not my problem anymore. The judge might see it differently. The judge will see exactly what I show them. Ronan's voice carried the weight of certainty. A calculating woman who plotted to steal from her husband while sleeping with another man. Let her find her own way now. Outside the law office, Denver's afternoon traffic flowed beneath gathering storm clouds. Ronan's phone buzzed with another notification, an email from his property management company. The lease termination for Elite Fit Denver was complete. In 2 weeks, Blaine's dream of a fitness empire would be reduced to equipment being sold at auction. Another message popped up, this one from Cassidy's sister. Asterisk, she's a mess, Ronan. At least talk to her. He deleted it without responding. He felt a surge of excitement, knowing that now was the time for them all to beg and plead. He'd learned long ago that showing mercy was just weakness in disguise. Rain began to fall as he drove home, fat drops against the Tesla's windshield. The weather matched his mood, a cleansing storm, washing away the last traces of his old life. But unlike Cassidy and Blaine, he would emerge stronger from the deluge. The game was in its final moves, and Ronan Hale was playing for keeps. The motel sign flashed its neon lights, casting a vibrant purple glow through the thin curtains of room 115. Cassidy sat on the edge of the sagging bed, her eyes focused on her phone's dwindling battery. Her designer suitcases stood out against the stained carpet, a testament to her adventurous spirit. A knock at the door made her jump. "Housekeeping," the voice announced. "Not today," she called out, her voice cracking with excitement. The maid's footsteps retreated, leaving her alone with the hum of the ancient air conditioner and her spiraling thoughts. She checked her phone, surprised to see a string of credit card notifications. Her Platinum Amex, used for yoga retreats in Bali, had been declined. Her Visa, which paid for her organic meal delivery, had been suspended, and even her personal checking account was frozen, pending the divorce investigation. "This can't be happening," she whispered, dialing her lawyer's number again. "Cassidy," Patricia Moore's voice was strained. "I told you not to call unless it's an emergency." "It is an emergency." Cassidy paced the small room. "They're saying I violated the prenup, that I forfeit everything because of the affair, which you documented extensively in emails and text messages." Patricia's voice crackled through the speaker. "Messages that your husband has copies of, along with hotel receipts, bank statements, and photos that would make a divorce court judge blush. There has to be something we can do." Cassidy's free hand twisted in her unwashed hair. "Some way to fight this." "Fight what?" Patricia's voice took on a new edge. "The evidence that you were planning to steal from your joint accounts? The affair with a man under IRS investigation? Your husband's legal team has built a case that's practically airtight." "But I need money," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "The motel won't let me stay another week without payment. My cards are all declined." "That's what happens when you plot to drain joint accounts, Cassidy." Patricia's voice hardened. "Actions have consequences. Your husband's lawyers just filed for an expedited hearing. They want to present evidence of attempted financial fraud." "He's trying to destroy me," Cassidy said, sitting down on the bed. "Everything I built, everything he built," Patricia corrected. "The house is in his name. The cars are in his name. Even your yoga studio's lease was technically under his corporation. Face it, Cassidy, you played a dangerous game and lost." "What about Blaine?" she asked hopefully. "He was part of this too. Can't we Blaine Coulter?" Patricia's laugh was sharp. "The man who's selling gym equipment to pay his tax bills? He's even been named in your divorce proceedings as a co-conspirator in attempted fraud. You won't be helping anyone." The line went dead as Patricia hung up. Cassidy stared at her phone until the screen dimmed, then went black, like her future. Another knock at the door, harder this time. "Management. We need to discuss your bill." Cassidy grabbed her purse, eager to see what she had. She checked for cash and found $23 and some loose change. Not even enough for another night out, but she'd figure something out. Her wedding ring caught the light as she dug through the bag. She tried to pawn it yesterday, only to learn it had been reported stolen. "Just a minute," she called, excitedly dialing another number. "Elite Fit Denver, this is Marcus." "Marcus, I need to speak to Blaine. It's urgent." "Sorry, ma'am. Mr. Coulter is no longer with us. The gym's under new management, pending sale of the property." "Sale? But this is his gym, his dream. Was built on shaky foundations." A new voice cut in, Ronan's voice. "Just like your plans to steal my money." Cassidy almost dropped the phone. "Ronan? What are you doing at the gym?" Overseeing the liquidation, he replied, his tone businesslike. It's incredible what you can buy when people face tax fraud charges. Tell me, did Blaine ever mention how he handled cash payments? I don't know what you're talking about. No? The IRS seems to think otherwise. They're very interested in his creative accounting methods, almost as interested as they are in those transfers you made from our joint account. The motel manager knocked again. Ma'am, we've got to discuss payment now. Please. Cassidy whispered into the phone. I need help. I don't have anywhere to go. You have exactly what you planned for me. Ronan's voice was cold. Nothing. How does it feel, Cassidy? Was it worth it? I made a mistake. I never meant to get caught, to face consequences, to end up in some cheap motel while your lover runs away to escape prosecution. Each question hit like a physical blow. You did this to yourself. Now, you just have to live with it. The line went dead. Cassidy's knees gave out, and she slid to the floor as the manager used his key to open the door. Ma'am, we need to discuss your outstanding balance. Hours later, Cassidy stood on the sidewalk outside the motel, her designer suitcases at her feet. The sun was setting behind Denver's skyline, painting the buildings in shades of gold, buildings Ronan had helped design while she plotted to betray him. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, hey babe, got a new phone. Had to leave town for a while. Don't try to contact me. B asterisk, so that was it. Blaine had run, leaving her to face the consequences alone. The man who'd promised her excitement, a fresh start, had disappeared like morning dew under the harsh sun of reality. She tried calling her sister again, but the call went straight to voicemail. Family had its limits, it seemed, especially when Ronan's lawyers had made sure everyone knew about her planned theft, her documented betrayal. A city bus rolled past, advertising yoga classes at a new studio across town. Her old students would be there now, learning from someone else. Someone who hadn't thrown away their career for an affair. Someone who hadn't been exposed as a fraud. The Denver sky lit up with thunder as the first drops of rain began to fall. Cassidy looked down at her Louboutin heels, the ones Ronan had bought for her birthday last year. They weren't made for walking in the rain. But then, nothing in her life had prepared her for this fall from grace. She'd played with fire, thinking she was too clever to get burned, but she was ready to take on this challenge. Now, she was watching her world turn to ash, with no one left to blame but herself. The courthouse steps shone in the morning sun as Ronan descended them, divorce decree in hand. 12 pages of legal documentation spelled out his complete victory. Behind him, he could hear Cassidy's muffled sobs as her lawyer explained the judge's ruling. Total forfeiture of assets. The prenup was ironclad, Patricia Moore was saying. And with the documented infidelity and attempted fraud, Ronan didn't need to hear the rest. He'd won, exactly as he'd planned. His 3-month strategy had been meticulous, and the result was that Cassidy had lost everything. Her luxurious lifestyle, her reputation, and her dreams of running away with her lover. The woman who thought she could play him for a fool was now facing the consequences of her choices. Mr. Hale, a reporter from the Denver Business Journal, approached, notebook in hand. Any comment on the judge's ruling? Justice served, Ronan replied simply, straightening his Italian silk tie. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a building to design. His Tesla purred to life as he slid behind the wheel. On the passenger seat, blueprints for his latest project, a 40-story tower that would reshape downtown Denver's skyline, awaited his attention. Success, he'd learned, was the best revenge. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, his project manager. Asterisk Elite Fit Denver demolition starts tomorrow. Wanna watch? Ronan smiled. The gym where Cassidy and Blaine had plotted their betrayal would soon be replaced by luxury condominiums. He designed them himself. Each floor was a testament to his triumph. I'd love to be there, he typed back. As he drove to Morrison Engineering, he passed by familiar landmarks. The restaurant where he'd witnessed Cassidy's betrayal, now with new energy. The yoga studio where she crafted her peaceful facade, now under fresh leadership. Every piece of her old life had been methodically dismantled. Naomi Brooks was waiting in his office, her architect's portfolio spread across his desk. Her dark hair cascaded in professional waves around her face, framing eyes that held intelligence and strength. No fake smiles, no hidden agendas, just brilliant design work and honest ambition. Heard about the divorce ruling, she said as he entered. Congratulations, she said, her voice full of joy. Thank you, Ronan replied, setting down his briefcase with a sense of relief. Now we can focus on what matters. And how's the tower design coming along? Actually, Naomi's smile radiated the warmth of a new idea. I had an idea about the penthouse levels. I'd love to discuss it over dinner. Ronan studied her, intrigued. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have thought of mixing business with pleasure, but here he was. But Naomi wasn't Cassidy. She had built her own career, earned her own success. She understood the value of hard work and loyalty. I know a great Italian place, he said, his voice alive with excitement. 7 o'clock? Perfect, she exclaimed, gathering her drawings with efficiency and purpose. At the door, she paused. Oh, and Ronan, I heard about Blaine Coulter. What about him? He's working as a personal trainer in Phoenix, at a budget gym. Her smile radiated. Quite the fall from owning his own place. Ronan nodded, feeling a surge of satisfaction. Life has a way of putting people where they belong. After Naomi left, he turned to the wall of windows overlooking downtown Denver. Just 3 months ago, he had stood here, plotting his revenge. Now, he stood victorious. Every piece of his plan executed to perfection. His phone buzzed with an email from his lawyer. Asterisk final asset division complete. Miss Hale's remaining possessions have been moved to storage. Storage fees are on her after 30 days. Asterisk heard about the divorce. Brutal, but hey, it's all part of the journey. I'll be sure to remember never to cross you, Hale. Ronan allowed himself a small smile. The whispers would spread through Denver's business community, not about how he'd been betrayed, but about how he'd handled it. No one would dare underestimate him again. As evening arrived, he found himself at Lorenzo's with Naomi. It was the same restaurant where he'd caught Cassidy's betrayal, but tonight was different. The candlelight flashed in her eyes as she spoke, her passion for architecture matching his own. Her ideas built on his vision, rather than trying to tear it down. The client loves the sustainable energy features, she said, spreading blueprints across the white tablecloth. But I think we can push it further. Show me, Ronan said, his voice alive with curiosity. As she walked him through her innovations, he felt a genuine connection, something he hadn't experienced in years. There were no games, no hidden motives, just shared ambition and mutual respect. I heard about your ex-wife, Naomi said later over tiramisu. Living in some extended stay motel, teaching yoga at a strip mall studio. Her choices, her consequences, Ronan said, taking a sip of his wine. I learned early on that loyalty matters more than anything. Is that why you're giving me a chance? Her directness was refreshing. After what she did, he met her gaze. I'm giving you a chance because you've earned it. You built your career on talent and hard work, not manipulation and lies. Good answer. Naomi's smile was genuine. But I have to admit, watching you dismantle their little scheme was impressive. You were ruthlessly efficient, just like your designs. I prefer to think of it as architectural, Ronan leaned back. Sometimes, you have to tear down the old to build something better. The next morning, Ronan stood, his heart filled with anticipation, as demolition crews prepared to take down Elite Fit Denver. The gym sign had already been removed, its ghostly outline visible on the brick facade. A lively crowd had gathered, former clients, curious onlookers, and even a few reporters. His phone buzzed with a final message from Cassidy. Asterisk, I heard they're tearing down the gym. Was any of it worth it? All this destruction just to punish us? Asterisk, Ronan typed back a single reply. Watch it fall. The wrecking ball swung, and brick crumbled. Each impact erased another piece of their betrayal, making way for his new vision. In just 6 months, a stunning residential tower will rise here, its penthouses offering breathtaking views of the mountains. He and Naomi would oversee every detail of the construction. That evening, Ronan sat on his patio, watching the sun set behind the majestic Rockies. His phone buzzed with another message from Naomi. Asterisk, dinner tonight? My treat. Looking forward to it. The mountain air carried the scent of possibility. Behind him, the house stood clean and peaceful, purged of Cassidy's presence. Ahead lay new projects, new challenges, and perhaps, with Naomi, a chance at something real. The game was over. Ronan Hale had won every round. But more importantly, he'd rebuilt himself stronger than before, turning betrayal into triumph, hurt into success. Some men might have been broken by what Cassidy and Blaine had planned, but Ronan Hale had risen above it all. Instead, he'd taken their schemes and turned them into the foundation of his victory. As the sun dipped below the mountains, bathing the sky in shades of victory, Ronan Hale stood tall, a symbol of resilience and triumph. Tomorrow would bring new designs, new buildings reaching toward the heavens. But tonight, Ronan savored the peace that came with complete vindication. He had survived the streets of his youth, built an empire from nothing, and now he protected it all from those who tried to steal it. Let the world know, no one who betrayed Ronan Hale could ever walk away unscathed. His legacy was etched into the very fabric of Denver, a testament to his unwavering spirit and unwavering commitment to his people.